Hello, and welcome to the Can Truman Make a Feature podcast. Today is Friday the 13th. Um, we have just over a month before production starts, so it is crunch time and a half right now. Definitely getting into all the nitty-gritty of everything and definitely just trying to catch up on everything. Luckily, things seem to be coming together, but we'll talk more about all that. We've got a interview with Roberto and Quinn this week. It's long and it's going to take up most of the episode, but I'm going to give a bit of a introduction and stuff. Before that, about everything else that's been going on. This was our, I think, third official meeting as the lighting and cam team. So sorry if you feel left out of certain things or missing context. We're essentially just ironing out how we want the movie to look and making sort of decisions based on all of that. Um, so hopefully that ends up being helpful. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to leave a comment on the YouTube or reach out to me on any of the socials or anything like that. I'd be happy to address them on any future episodes, provided people are listening. But anyway, nonetheless, let's get into it. I am going to, about halfway through the episode, get on my soapbox and talk about how to make your film not look like a student film and look like a cinematic film. Um, should you take my advice? I don't know. Maybe, probably not. I just graduated film school. I have made one feature before this, technically. It's a experimental documentary. We could talk more about that, but I don't think it's really all that relevant. But all I'm saying is that, I'm not somebody with years and years of experience, but I would say, as someone who sees a lot of student films, sees a lot of indie films, sees a lot of shit at festivals. I also worked as a programming intern for a festival for a little bit. I am in a unique position in that sense, and I am a quite big movie buff. But if you don't like what I have to say, I'm just some guy on the internet, and there's no rules to art. So take anything I have to say with a grain of salt. The only reason why I preface that with so much stuff is because this is like the first time I'm telling other people how to do shit, I guess, rather than just explaining what my process has been. And so I want to make it very clear that I don't think that I know everything or think that I have all the answers. I most certainly do not. And so, anyway, let's talk again about what I've been doing, and then we'll get into that. So that's your promise of the future. You will learn how to make your student film more cinematic. Let's talk about Facebook Marketplace for a minute. This has been one of my saving grace tools. What's great is that so many people don't know what they have um, or are just sick of having it around, even if they do know what they have. And they're just trying to get rid of it and clear out some space. And luckily in film, you always need something weird, right? One reason or another. And so Facebook Marketplace is a perfect place to get all that shit. So for example, the big one that I did, I actually was on my first paid gig for a movie, as a PA. It was a short film, that shot in Waco. Huge shout out to the folks that had me on set. It's a wonderful set. Let me pull up the call sheet so I can give them a real shout out by name. And truthfully, I avoided saying the director and writer's name multiple times just because I didn't know how to say his his last name. But huge shout out to Kevin Machate, I believe, or Machate. He's been on a bunch of stuff on IMDb and stuff like that. So he's legit. And then the other director was Amy Masterson, who also had a pretty stacked IMDb. They were an absolute pleasure to work with. I'm super happy that they had me on set. Everyone on set was super nice as well. And I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say about this movie, but when it comes out, go see it. It was a very, very personal story, so it was very interesting to see how the crew handled that and dealt with that. It seemed, very, very difficult for the actors and everything, but it seemed like they captured something pretty cool from my perspective. And again, nothing short of thank y'all for having me on set. And anyway, we were shooting up in Waco, and I figured on the way to Waco, since there was someone way out of town who had a door that I needed, because again, for this film, we have a scene where the door falls off or gets shoved off. Um, I decided that I'd just pick up a door on the way to set, and we'll see how that goes. So I am about to share my screen and show you how much space the door ended up taking up in my car. Um, so if you can see that, yeah, this 8 foot door in a relatively small SUV, really takes up the whole car. And luckily my parents or my grandparents live, pretty north, in Georgetown. So I just ran back and dropped the door off with them rather than bringing that to set because I thought that that might be a little bit unprofessional. Here's another thing to show you. This is me driving with the I'm gonna turn down the sound. With the door in my car, you can see it is almost up against the windshield. But yeah, we're just driving around, getting the door to where it's got to go right before I'm called on set for day one. So very funny that that was going on. Um, and then I just picked up some tablecloths. Someone must have gotten a whole bunch of tablecloths for like a fancy event or something, and they're just giving them away. Great about tablecloths, black tablecloths, is they're an alternative to using trash bags that are reusable for blocking out light. This was an idea coined by Roberto and Nicholas Aragon Maresca on their previous set. Not that I truthfully believe they're the first person to ever come up with this idea. I'm sure someone's thought of this idea beforehand, but really cheap and efficient way, and so many people are getting rid of black tablecloths. So, yeah, went and picked up a whole bunch of black tablecloths for like $50. I got maybe 10 of them or so. So I was pretty amped about that. And then similarly, packing blankets, I think I'm about to get 10 for 50, but we'll see. I'm asking about a whole bunch of people. And that's going to be great because we're kind of using empty what's it called? Rooms for shooting, and so those packing blankets are gonna help kill the reverb and kill the echo. I talked about the first cam meeting. Oh, I'm just looking at my notes, sorry. So we've been using I don't know if I should say this. Yeah, I'm gonna go for it. It's a good resource for everybody, and even though I'd prefer to get, paid for company shout outs, I'm gonna share it anyway. Um, Backstage is where we posted our casting call. Got a whole bunch of very, very talented people sending in auditions. And we've had a lot of people to choose from. I just went out and sent callbacks to our top 3 or 4 for each role. Gotten a couple of those callback auditions back. I think it is always oh shoot. I'm gonna pause this for a second. All right, we are back. Sorry about that interruption. I had to have a strategy meeting for a family bake-off competition that we do for Christmas every year. I believe I was on callbacks from backstage. So anyway, we've got a lot of really good actors, and actually, I just watched a new audition that was really, really excellent. That I feel really good about this guy. I think we're gonna cast him for something. I don't know what, but he did a really phenomenal job. And again, that was just because I reached out to all the people who didn't get their auditions in by the original deadline, and the people who just kind of lost track of it, but really wanted it, sent in their audition like within the next 3 days, which was excellent and really showed initiative. And there were a couple of really good ones from that. Then again, there were also a lot of people who just, weren't on top of their game and lost track of time. And, that sort of, what's it called? Lack of awareness and everything kind of translated into their performance. That sounds harsh. Just, the people who aren't on top of their deadlines also might not end up being your top choice. But then again, everybody makes mistakes, and sometimes, somebody made a mistake, but they're really, really awesome, and then that mistake gets them to like, okay, I need to dial in to make up for it. And one or two of those people really did dial in to make up for it, and gave us a phenomenal performance. So it was awesome. Um, I was looking at this, and maybe I talked about this before. I'm a little worried that I'm going to be too repetitive on this, so sorry about that. Pedals. You're allowed to like put logos up in your movie so long as it's something that like you couldn't control. For example, if you're doing a driving scene and there's a billboard behind you, you can't move that billboard out of the way, and it's not your responsibility to get a VFX artist to go in and remove that billboard. So, you're allowed to have that. Something that is inherently not that, is when we are putting pedals in the movie, talking about the specific pedals, and it's just one of those things where I don't think anyone would sue us because we're talking positively about all the pedals. But it's one more thing that a distributor might not be as interested in working with us on if they now have the added baggage of having to talk to these pedal companies. So the two solutions are it doesn't seem like any of the pedal companies want to pay us. Bummer. Not a big fan of that, but sucks. We move on, right? Um, so I just moved on and asked everybody, hey, plain simple deal. We put your pedals in the movie. We talk about them for free. I don't pay you for the pedals. You don't, pay me for anything. And I have one company that I think is going to be cool with that, but I don't know how many pedals he's going to be willing to let us borrow. And so we'll see. We may still need to do plan B. Plan B is we go out and we rent the pedals I was going to rent, and my buddy Matthew, producer and sort of graphic designer as well. Sort of is probably a harsh term. He's pretty honest shit. Um, he's gonna make little stickers that we just put on top of the real logos, cover it up, and we call them by silly names. Which I'm never a fan of calling places like Burger Barn instead of we all know what I really mean when I say Burger Barn. Whatever burger place comes to mind in your head, right? Um, I'm never a fan of that, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Last thing I'm gonna do before I get into my soapbox thing is it's struggling for us to find crew right now. I went and posted our crew link on Backstage because I didn't realize that we could also cast for crew on Backstage. So we'll see if that gets us any more applicants. We'll see. But we're shooting during weekdays, 10-hour days. We're shooting for almost a whole month. I believe I'm quoting people about 16 days, including the possibility of days off and the fact that we're gonna have to set up before we actually start shooting and break down after. So 16 days is hard, and then to also not be able to pay people a real livable wage for those 16 days does put pressure on. I mean, the amount that I'm offering people, for a couple specific positions to really entice crew, I mean, is really an insulting amount, and I do feel bad about it. However, I don't have much more money to give people. So it's kind of that's at least that I'm paying people. Otherwise, it'd just be completely unpaid, which would suck. And also limit our options. But basically, I need people who are willing to work for unpaid, and then I'll be nice and give them a little bit of extra money as a thank you. Um, anyway, so it's a big commitment and it's hard to find people that want to fill that commitment. All right, before we get to the interview, I'm gonna do my little soapbox thing. So I hope you're excited about that. Then we're gonna get into the interview, and then the episode's gonna end abruptly because the meeting ends at a certain point in time in the interview. So it's gonna end abruptly and come back next week for more information on Can Truman Make a Feature, Tonality and Totality. So I see a lot of movies that just look poopy. And that's because a lot of people make poopy looking movies. I'm no stranger to that. I've made a number of poopy looking movies. One could argue all of my movies look poopy. So, this also comes from an awareness of what choices you make that make your movie look poopy. I believe, and I don't want to sound over boastful or anything like that. I believe my last two short films don't look poopy. Um, and if you disagree with that, then maybe you shouldn't take my advice because this is going to be, the choices that I made to make my short films then not look poopy. But anybody who says their short film looks so beautiful and cinematic and amazing, like half the time they're bullshitting you. They're talking out their ass, and their movie actually looks the poopiest. So be aware of that when someone's bragging about how cool their movie looks. Maybe it looks poopy, and that's okay. We all make poopy movies, and that's amazing. We're all out here just trying to make art. But let's say you really, really don't want to make a poopy looking movie and you're a student filmmaker or a micro budget filmmaker, or you just don't have any resources or know what you're doing really, and you're just out here trying to make a movie that looks like what it looks like on the big screen. I've got a couple of small tips that can just add that extra oomph. I don't know that if you're doing everything else wrong and you just do these couple of things right, this probably isn't going to make your movie, to be honest. But it is things that if you're looking at your footage and you're like, why does my movie look poopy? Everything else is pretty good. These are some things that you could think about that might help you make your movie look less poopy next time. Um, the first thing is acting. Really good acting is the only way to make a professional looking movie. If the acting sucks, your movie sucks. There's just no two ways about that. We've seen so many really fully professional movies, and I'm not going to name any names, but you can all think of some movie in your head that came from a major studio within the last year, even. I'm sure every year there is a movie that fits this description. Looks amazing, cinematic, fabulous, awesome. And you know what? The acting is just so terrible that it just ruins the whole movie. You can all think of a movie that has a multi-million dollar budget that falls into that category. And a lot of times it's really good actors who are just not on it for that one, which maybe means the script's bad, maybe means the director's bad. But again, both the script, I mean, the script serves everything, but both the script and the director really are supposed to serve that purpose of making believable acting. And also, Shane Black said this in something. I can't remember where I saw it, but he said something about this. People don't want to see believable dialogue. They want to see movie believable dialogue. You know, you don't want to make a movie where people talk the way they actually talk because people talk boring. People go like, "Oh, hey, you want to do this? You want to do that? I don't know. I don't know." That's not fun. That's not cool to watch. You want people to talk like they talk in movies. You just want to make it sound like it's realistic, even though it's the way people talk in movies. Um, so that's my little spiel about acting. If your acting doesn't look good, your movie's not going to look good. So always get the best actors and really work on your directing and the way you talk to actors as well. If you don't have someone who can really talk to actors, you're probably not going to get a good performance out of those actors. Because even though actors are brilliant and they all know how to read a script and understand what they're supposed to be portraying, the director has the scope of what else is going on in that actor or in that character to bring into that performance. And when you, the director, and the actor both learn about the character together and have things to play off of, you're gonna have something great. What I learned in film school is not result-oriented direction. That's your number one enemy, and you should always think about why is the performance not working? What is something that this person can actually relate to talk about. And there's a book about it. I will put it in the description. I think it's just called Directing Actors. Life-changing book. I thought I knew how to direct. I thought I came from an acting background. I should know how to direct. I could talk to actors. I didn't know shit. After I'd read this book, twice as good of a director. Not that I'm a great director, but I'm better than I was before I read the book. Really incredible. But just to give you an idea, right? You don't want to say do it bigger. You don't want to say do it happier. Hey, can you be sillier? Right? You want to say, hey, in this scene, what is your goal? How much do you care about what your scene partner has to say? Right? You can ask leading questions, but they're questions that they're gonna think about, and those are gonna authentically affect the performance. Whereas happier, they don't understand why they're being happier or what emotion they're really portraying, right? Not that great actors can take those notes and make do with it, um, but you know, notes like that aren't as helpful to make more authentic performances. All right, that's we're still on acting. I promise the rest of them will be more direct, simple, and helpful. Number two, camera movement. Uh, if you it's more cinematic to see camera movement than stationary tripod camera. It just is not very cinematic. Um, there's no other way to say it. Tripods and wide shots specifically on tripods just are not cinematic in my eyes. Again, disagree with me all you want. There are plenty of great, fabulous movies that do wide shots on tripods and they look incredible. Roma's a fabulous example. Those wide shots are just gorgeous. But you're a student, you're not making Roma. It's not going to look good when you do it on your budget on your camera. Even if you're shooting on the fucking Ari, you know, even if you're shooting on the nicest camera out there, right? You're shooting 4K. If you're shooting stationary wide shots, it's not going to look good. So also get your coverage, dude. You want to edit around. You want to make sure that you have a variety of shots to choose from. Nothing is less cinematic than a single shot scene of a whole thing. Again, there are so many awesome things that do single shot, one tripod wide shot, but they're people who really know what they're doing and they're focusing on doing everything else right to make it work. And again, what we're talking about is you as a student filmmaker or an indie filmmaker with limited resources, you are trying to accentuate what you do have and hide what you don't have. What's great about these Hollywood movies is they have everything. So if they want to just do all standard, simple tripod shots, it's going to look fine because they have everything else absolutely perfect. All the best professionals dialed in on their shit, right? But yeah, put in camera movement. And if you can't afford dollies, if you can't afford sliders, if you can't afford orbiters, whatever it is, fucking shoot handheld. Why not? That's what we're shooting this thing on. We're shooting like as handheld as possible. Get the fucking easy rigs if you can afford those. Those are awesome. And there are other brands that aren't easy rigs. So again, shoot, I'm listing too many brands, but we're looking at a different brand for a backpack camera. Gimbals are great for that too. There's so many ways at this point to get good camera movement that you really should only be using stationary shots when you really need them. Um, and again, when you're going to use those stationary shots, make sure to keep in mind all these other things. Uh, this one's a really simple one. Widescreen. Widescreen looks so much more cinematic. If you just throw those black bars on top and bottom, a lot of people say you can let your color correction be a little bit easier. Like you don't have to worry as much about color correction because those top and bottom bars just make it look so much more cinematic. Definitely something to keep in mind that if you're looking at your movie and you're like, damn, this thing just doesn't look cinematic, try putting those top and bottom bars on and see if it does something. I've done a lot of movies where like this looks so uncinematic. Throw those top and bottom bars on it and it's like, whoa, oh my gosh. Looks everything. Depth of field. The shallower the depth of field, the more cinematic it looks. I think it's a little obnoxious that people are doing more and more shallow depth of field, and then it's just like so blown out behind it, and it gets a little bit obnoxious and overproduced. So definitely find your balance, but you want something blurry in the foreground or background, which brings me to my next um, point. Get something in the foreground or in the background. If your shot is just one plane, which is super common for close-ups. If you're shooting a close-up that's just the face, nothing in the background, nothing in the foreground, make it a dirty over, dude. Throw someone's shoulder in the back of the frame. You already have a much more dynamic frame, right? Put something in the background. I was working on something recently where they just shoved a certain set piece in a specific place where it's just out of focus, but you can still see what the set piece is, and it made the whole shot, dude. It went from, a simple shot that worked and was fine to a cinematic, incredible shot. Put stuff in the foreground, the background, ideally both, and then your subject. You really want multiple layers in the frame to make it look more cinematic and like each frame is a picture worth looking at on its own. Because if you're shooting things that, aren't pictures worth looking at on their own, and you're like, well, it's a close up, so it'll do, it won't do. And enough of your shots are going to show through that they aren't cinematic like that, that you're gonna, it's gonna show through and people aren't gonna look at your film and think it looks cinematic. They're gonna think it looks like an indie or they're gonna think it looks like a student film. Um, I got a couple more. Less is more. Really dial in on your set decoration. Just because you're shooting in a school doesn't mean it looks like the school that the students are in your movie, right? The reason why I bring up school is because so many people shoot at schools um, for student films. So many people film school scenes for their student films because they're students and they want to make films about being students. I did the same thing. if you just go point blank into your location and expect it to look like a cinematic location, it's not going to look like that. Even though you are actually shooting it at a on location and you're filming what a real school looks like, it doesn't actually look like a cinematic school. Less is more, but be intentional and put things there, you know? Um, really, really think about that. And I know that one's a little vague, and I'm sorry that that's vague, but really think about what would look cool in your setting, right? So, for example, on my film Star Students, right? Luckily, it was during a star test, and what I know as someone who's taken a lot of star tests, or sorry, standardized tests in general, I took the star. I know other people take other ones. Um, is that they cover the walls with butcher paper to make it not look like a typical classroom and to cover up anything that might give an answer on the test, right? So we could have just done plain butcher paper. What we ended up doing is we kind of collaged it and ripped them in weird shapes, which is not real. That's not what real people do. But it added a texture to the background that was really, really helpful. And even though a lot of them were plain shapes, there were enough of them that looked a little weird, but it also wasn't distracting. You don't want too much shit all over the walls. A favorite example, I can't remember what the movie is. It is one of those movies about, I think it's Saved, if I remember correctly. Saved has a classroom scene, or it's But I'm a Cheerleader, one of the two. Um, they have a classroom scene and they shoot into the classroom. The classroom's pretty empty, but where they would have had a bulletin board with a whole bunch of homework stuck up, right? And a whole bunch of posters and things like that that would be too busy for the background of a movie. One of my favorite jokes in the whole movie, it's just a bulletin board that says creationism on it. And it works so well because it's not too distracting. It's one word, simple. It looks pretty. It looks like some teacher took the time to decorate it, right? And it works, you know? And it's what that classroom would have up realistically. So it fits in. Um, so again, less is more, but really dial in. Make sure your set looks like a cool set. If it looks like you're just shooting in your mom's house, people can tell when those characters wouldn't have that kind of stuff, you know? Because chances are the character in your movie isn't actually what your mom and dad are like. Even if it's based on your mom and dad, chances are the character in your movie wouldn't have the same house as your mom and dad. And again, you need it to look less busy than it actually looks. Um, Shadows. This is our penultimate one we got. Oh, sorry, three more. Shadows. Too many people shoot their movie with plain and simple three-point lighting. Three-point lighting is great. You should know it. You should use it. But if your movie is plain, simple three-point lighting, it is going to look like a porn parody every time. Which, not to show hate on porn parodies. There are a lot of very, very talented filmmakers who are working in that industry. So I am not trying to talk shit on that. However, most of the time, their primary goal, people who are making porn parodies, isn't cinematic and artsy and is more erotic, which it's better to see everything with three-point lighting where everything looks great. So they're achieving their visual goals by doing that. Anyway, I don't need to keep talking about this. This is ridiculous. But it's something to think about, right? You're not trying to make sure people can see everything. You're trying to make something that looks artsy and cool and funky and weird. Give them shadows, right? Look at noir films and see how shadowy everything is, right? And yeah, you can use overhead lighting. Overhead lighting is fine, but it's not dynamic. So don't be just throwing on your typical lights. I mean, this podcast looks crappy, right? Because that's what I'm doing. And it's not, the goal is not to make this podcast look cinematic. And that's because I'm just using the overhead lights, right? If I really wanted to make it look cinematic, I'd probably just put like a little backlight, something dim behind us, and one key light. I wouldn't even worry with the fill light because then I'm going to get really nice shadows on the left side of the face. Even if you're making a comedy, put some shadows in there because it makes it look more cinematic. Make your lighting look interesting, make shapes, make, textures, things like that. And all of these things are going to end up being talked about in the next section of the podcast. Um, really plan to your advantage, right? Think about what you have and what you don't have, right? And this kind of is the thesis of all of this. If you don't have a setting that looks like the real thing, maybe you should blur out the background, right? If you have a really awesome location that you think looks super weird and cinematic, perfect example is Robert Rodriguez added those dream sequences into the movie. I believe they weren't in the script. I could be wrong about all this. I read the book a while ago. Um, because he just found some really cool ruins and he was like, this looks super cinematic. Let me just go shoot this, right? And he just threw it in the movie. And guess what? It looks super cinematic and cool because it's a weird looking location and it's great for a dream sequence, right? And so he dialed in on the everything and he shot at those wide shots because it was the time to show off what he had that was cool and cinematic. The last thing I'll leave you with is intentional means style. There's no such thing as your shot looks shitty. Your shot doesn't look shitty, it looks stylistic, right? So if you keep shooting the same way that everyone else is shooting, right? And you don't make weird choices, it's going to look like what? A porn parody, right? Because that's how porn parodies are shot, right? And again, no hate. They're doing what they're trying to do. They're trying to get what they want on frame. You're not trying to do that. You're trying to make it look weird, right? So for example, one of my close-ups, you could have shot it like here. I'll try and like this is probably a typical close-up, right? Head covering most of the frame, right? Or you could shoot it like this. Sorry, you can't, people who are on audio can't see that. And I stepped away from the microphone. All I'm saying is you could shoot it a normal close-up and have the head covering most of the frame with a little bit like, you know, head covering most of the frame, but not cut off. Or you could zoom in way too close for no reason, and it's going to look cinematic. Of course, make motivated choices for everything, but really think about every shot. What can I do that isn't what's expected in this scene? And how can I make it motivated, right? So, for example, that way too close up is really great for a dramatic, tense scene. If you want to make someone feel trapped, trap them in the frame, right? Make the frame lines, trapped around them. We had this motif on Star Students where for each scene, the person's head gets farther and farther into the bottom right corner of the frame, which typically you would only put someone in the corner of the frame that they're looking opposite of. And we had them looking just literally into the edge of the frame. This is not a brilliant technical idea that only I had. We got it from Atlanta, which I believe Hiro Murai is the guy in charge of that. I believe he's the DP who came up with that idea, but they also do it in Better Call Saul. And I'm sure it's been done in, some French New Wave movie from back then. So again, nobody's inventing something new. We're all stealing and moving forward. But steal that idea. Put their shot looking into the frame rather than looking across the frame. It's cinematic. It makes people feel trapped, you know? It looks weird, it looks interesting, and it looks cool. And that is all I have for today. Sorry, this is probably going to be a long episode. Hopefully, it's got a lot of gold in it. Um, yeah, check out the interview with Berto and Quinn, and I'll see you next week.
Hold up, I have to go to hair and makeup real quick.
Okay,
I'll be
word.
back.
All right. So, now that we're on the podcast, how do we want to struck? Oh, just to address homework assignments.
Yeah.
My mom is currently getting us the floor plan slash blueprints. She thought she had them already, but now she just got to put in a request with somebody, something or other.
No,
Uh,
I love that. Yeah, that's gonna
pro
be awesome. That's like for me, that's like number one item, I think.
Cool. I'll probably have them by the end of the week or so, is my guess.
Beautiful.
But then
Yeah,
again, I don't know
yeah,
how long these things take. Um,
yeah.
And then I put all my gear in. Quinn, I saw that you put your gear in.
Ooh.
The due date was Tuesday, and then we moved up the meeting.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
feeling that no one was going to do it.
yeah.
And then, I just had some time on set this week. Um, Trying to think. Other than that, I think it's more I want to hand it off to y'all and hear what y'all are thinking lighting and look wise. We've talked a lot about a bunch of stuff. Um I had one more idea to pitch, but it's small and we'll get there when we get there. We can start room by room. We can start overall. What would be most productive to y'all?
Um, I feel like we should just talk like overall and get like vibes down, and then we can like we'll probably like break down into specific ideas for certain things. I went through and I watched all the homework videos. That was I liked that. Um, I I really like I don't know how much of this that you uh how much of this is like a is what you want. I mean, you did link it, but I really liked the Blade Runner stuff that you linked.
Yeah, I really liked that one
Um
too.
I recently watched that film with Bev and the person that she's talking to right now, and I loved it. And I watched it this summer at the Paramount actually, and it was fucking awesome. I love that movie. And I think actually the lighting is sort of what you want because it is very like hard source. There's a lot of like shadows and shades and like not really anything is lit properly in a way. And especially like Deckard's apartment, which isn't, I think, the scene that you linked, but the scenes in Deckard's apartment with Rachel, like Deckard's apartment is a fucking cluttered shithole. And it's nice.
I'll have to go
So
back and
yeah,
look at that one. I haven't watched the whole movie in a minute, but yeah,
yeah,
I picked that scene and yeah, I figured with each of the links, if one of them resonated with people, we'd all go back and watch the whole thing together or, we'd see what happens. But Blade Runner will be
yeah,
added to the list now for
yeah,
me to
yeah. And
watch
that
before filming.
yeah, I really love like the hard light on like the edge of somebody's face, and then the rest is like in shadow. And I feel like that could work pretty well. Um, but yeah, and then I see like I looked at the things for like the house that Jack built that you put of just like sort of like roaming, zooming in and out, and sort of like very like tight like this. Um, and I like that. Um, yeah, and I started reading the script today. I got about like 12 or 15 pages into it before I got distracted with something else.
Before you felt
Um,
like you needed to vomit.
no, 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 no. Like my friend came over to drop off the tubes, and then I got distracted after that. Um,
It's
but I
just the
already
script.
yeah, no, but like I already started
No.
like
Oh,
making
geez.
notes and like different things. So
Are those
um,
notes about ideas for filming, or are those notes about things I should fix?
no, 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 no. If I do actually um and these are like notes and ideas for me, but as things that you should fix, I think this was in an earlier script whenever he's talking with Rand and then like forget whatever the fucking tele Dale. Um, he like makes a joke about like Perseus or something. Um, but Perseus is the one with wings, not the one with the horn. Um, I think at some point there was a joke about that
There
and
is,
him getting it
and
wrong,
someone
but I don't know
else.
if I got to that point yet or whether it was taken out.
No, I took it
Um,
out.
okay. I just
Well,
like
kind of.
the
I adjusted it for it to be correct because yeah, I made the mistake.
yeah,
Of
yeah. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that because it is the wrong mythical horse.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Yeah.
is it that he says the incorrect thing and then somebody corrects him? Is that what's in the script now, or
not
is I
as
reading something old?
no. I so I have made multiple small tweaks. The one that we read on the reading was draft 3, and we're currently on what I'm calling 3.8, and I'm trying to finish to 4. If you want, I can send you the new script. There's not that much that's changed. All the scenes happen in the same place. All the like objectives are the same in each scene. All the events are the same. The only difference is like making each character more accurate, more likable, less likable, shit like that. Funnier.
Okay.
I was gonna wait and send people out draft 4 when I really felt like I was good with that. Um, but yeah,
How
Yeah.
old is 3.8?
3.8, I think I just sent people like maybe 2 weeks ago. Do you have 3.5? 3 point,
No, I have 3.8.
yeah, then you're like one of the, I probably have sent 2 to 3 people 3.8 so far. But yeah, just based on when people ask to see the script, I send them the most updated. But yeah, and then Gallagher is gonna see 4. That's the, that's the,
Yeah.
that's the real
Um,
chopping block. Back on topic.
yeah. A note for us.
Yeah,
This is I didn't get that far into the script, but there is just between the conversations between Rand and Dale is a lot of just like I don't really want to. My thought was like I don't really want to show Dale because I feel like the reveal of Dale at the end uh is a nice reveal. Um, but then that gives us the trouble of like a quarter of the script is just phone calls where it's just and how do you make that interesting? So that's a thing that we're going to need to figure out.
that I think is one of our biggest challenges looks wise. I One of the things, and we're moving in the right direction with it, is there is likely a mouse that lives in Rand's room that we can cut to, which I thought would be very funny. I thought we would just keep having a whole bunch of close-ups and things like that. But we can also find moments to dilly-dally, or
Yeah.
like have Rand pace around the room and things like that.
Yeah. I was thinking just now, um, well, because like the part that I got to that made me really start thinking about this was the part when he's describing like his signal flow to Dale. And I was thinking like because we want sort of like roaming, zooming camera, like you could like quite literally follow like the signal flow of boxes when he's like, I have
Love
this
that.
box to that box to that box. And then as he's like touching them, it can like pan up to him and then be like a tight, and then he notices somebody out the window, so then you can have like his reaction of like, what the fuck is that? And then like you like pan over and then he like walks into it and he's like, who is that? And then he like freaks out, and so you can like 180 and like come down dipping below the window. That could be cool. Um, but
Definitely like that.
what led me in that direction was that he can be oftentimes when I'm on a phone call, I'm like fiddling with things and looking other places. And I imagine he would be like fiddling with his gear, and then like he could even be like plucking along or trying to like come up with a thing or just like absentmindedly playing with these things. And then like, I don't know how maybe you can make it like visually tie in of like he's playing with like a certain thing that like speaks to maybe what he's like trying to say in that moment or can't, or different ideas to like link it together or certain things.
I can go
Uh,
through and try and add like a line in the script too of what he could be fiddling with in each moment. And also another thing is, as much as I don't want to get too frilly and out of like everything with like editing and like fancy pants shit, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. The one kind of like fancy pants silly thing I would be down for is if we wanted to do like a stop motion of like the pedals going one by, not even like a stop motion, but just like I've got a bit crusher running into a blank, right, type of thing.
and it's like cut like or like and then like and then it's like bit crusher ba 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 and then like ba ba ba. Yeah,
Like
I get it.
yeah, we'd show the pedal board and then we'd jump cut like bing 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 as they fill on out.
Or you show the pedal board and the screen is blacked out, and then it's like that part of the pedal board appears, that part of the pedal board appears, that part of the pedal board appears. I don't know. We can get crazy with it.
Yeah, the one thing that I do think can be someone talked about like in certain movies drugs are sexy and in other movies drugs aren't sexy, right? And I don't know if that rings true to anybody, but like in the scene in Pulp Fiction where what's his name? Vincent is buying the heroin and he lights the needle and there's the close-up shot. The drugs look sexy, right? Versus in Requiem for a Dream, if I remember correctly, the drugs don't look as sexy. They don't give them the fine close-ups. They don't. It's kind of just wide shots of, right? But again, I don't remember for sure on that one. The pedals can be sexy in this movie. All of the guitar gear can be sexy in this movie. Whatever we want to do to really give them that shine, they they get it. Everything else shouldn't.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Do we want to focus more in on lighting?
Yeah, whatever works. Just trying to. So again, the goal of these calls are before Roberto comes into Austin and we just start pounding out shot list stuff that
Hey,
we're
yo.
all on the right page with lighting charts, or at least where we're gonna head towards with lighting charts, and then we can come back afterwards and make them. And then that we're all on the same page with vibes and looks and everything.
All right.
Um,
Um, Quinn, what are your ideas?
Well, I agree with what you were saying about the Blade Runner. I do really like
Hmm.
the lighting cut off like right below the
Hmm.
eyes, kind of like the hard light. I was looking at a lot of the other stuff that you sent Truman, and there's a lot of like I feel like so much stuff like through windows and with a lot of layered and kind of dappled like just things in the way.
Yeah.
And kind of giving this kind of like it's kind of like an imperfect, just like spread of light through the room. So we have just like weird dark spots and kind of weird bright spots. But I like in like I'm trying to think like Double Amenity, Chinatown, like American Beauty. I feel like they're all moving in and out of this kind of like dark bright like ripple. And I'm wondering if just doing a lot of layering with the light, a lot of just texture, going through blinds, going through tree branches, going through um, things like that. Um,
Yeah.
and then kind of like filling in a little bit where we need to. Um, and I was curious, the eraser had almost like the boxes of light Um, that also kind of I feel like matches the Blade Runner feel of kind of like this like almost like cut in position lights, like look here, look at this. Um, and I guess that could be something that we could use more as like to draw attention. Maybe there's specific scenes that you want more of this like almost like surreal like box of light around somebody. Like pay attention, look over here. Um, I don't know. My
Yeah,
my main brain is saying like do a lot of stuff through Windows and then break it up and rough it up.
yeah,
Um, some
yeah,
some cutters or some blades. Some
yeah. We could use if you have your Legos, bringing your Legos for that would be awesome because I do a lot of theater things, and so like Legos are like my shit.
yeah.
I've worked with Legos all the time. I love them.
Hmm.
The
Um,
one thing I will add to what you're saying, my idea that I had before we started the call, you hit the nail on the head with the tree branches. There is an issue about said tree branches, and that's that there are no trees by that house, at least like right up on the window where it would really be helpful. It's a pretty, treeless arrangement. And I'm totally cool if we want to pretend there are trees because we never see the front of the house like that,
Yeah.
you know?
yeah, we can
Trees
I
and
absolutely go
pieces.
like yeah, we can absolutely go like steal a tree branch and then just like get a PA to hold it in front of a light or like put a fucking
Yeah, throw it
lamp
on a
on
C
it into a
stand.
C
I've
stand.
done that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the only window that we probably couldn't or shouldn't do it on is Rand's window because Rand has the scene where he looks out the window. This is something I added in 3.8, Quinn. But he looks out the window and just sees a neighbor walking around and he gets freaked out.
Okay.
So we couldn't really make tree branch in one scene, but no tree branch in the other scene unless
I
y'all
mean,
thought that no one would
that's just like get creative with how you shoot it, I think. Like
Yeah.
you can make these things happen just by
all right.
blocking prop. Another thought that I had was this is a thing that we did with American Therapy is the front door in the bar. Bev got like white trash bag and just like covered all of like the windows. It was like one of those doors where it has like window and like the cross pattern. And she got trash bag to cover that, and so it just looks blown out. And so I was wondering if in the interior, if we could just blow out every window, and then you don't really see the inside, and so like the house feels like separate from the world. You
I
know,
love
you
that.
can't see the outside, and you just see the light coming in through it, but it's all like blocked by shit, or like there's like shit in the way or whatever, and it's just like yeah,
Yeah.
because like ultimately like the way that I see it is this is like a story of like Rand learning to like open up and let things in. So it's like you could use like the windows as like cracks of light in like this dark place that Rand lives in.
Man,
And
dude,
yeah.
somebody gets a raise.
I haven't even read the
Metaphorical
script yet.
lighting. Let's go. What? What's who's this Rand guy? What's his deal?
I don't know. Um, I don't know. That was just the thought I had.
A
Yeah.
plus,
I
love
like
it.
it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, trying to think. I don't think I have too many other things. I think
So
we might be all on the same page. Yeah,
yeah,
where
I
do we
mean,
transition to?
I think this is will maybe be informed by how we choose to shoot it or different things or like once I like read the script a couple times and like really get it and understand it more. But one thing that I think would be interesting to do would be to have the light in the same rooms at different parts of the story be different? Like obviously not in like a time of day way, like or like no, it's sunset and so the room is amber. But like motivated by like the feelings and the happenings because from what I remember the first time I read it, um like it gets more anxiety driven and he gets more and more freaked out as it happens and people like he feels like people are following him. So I don't know if that is something that we can do or maybe we can like if these people are like figments of his imagination, then maybe he's like lit and shot in a way that like I don't know, looks different from the way that the other two people are shot. And
Hmm.
maybe there's like some sort of
I
like a
think
motif of like how these people are lit and how they exist in the scene separate from Rand.
I think each scene kind of ebbs and flows, at least with Dale. In Dale, like in each scene with Dale, there's a moment where he loves me, there's a moment where he loves me not, and then there's a moment where Rand pulls away. I mean, pretty much every scene is like, okay, he won me over. Okay, he lost me. I'm gonna leave him. Right? Is almost every scene with those two. And I think you know how like when you're outside on a sunny day and then like a cloud passes over and it just like weird, it kind of got dark just there. Is there a way that we could have the light like dim outside without it looking like we're dimming light? You know, I don't want it to be like an Edgar Wright type of thing.
Right. The other
Um,
thing that we can,
I'm
I mean, I have dimmers. I have 1,000 watt dimmers that we can put on lights. I imagine you might have some too.
mhm.
Um, Another thing that we can do is just like if he's moving around and the camera's moving around, he can walk to a different part of the room
Dark spot.
and where like the
mm,
lighting is different and
And
where like yeah.
oh no, you go fat. You finish your thought.
Well like you could just like for this part of the conversation, he can be lit through like the window and this other light, and then for this other type, like the light could be motivated from like the blinking light of the petals, or it could be like mostly in shadow, or like shooting like the camera moves and we're shooting from a different direction. So like on this side of the face, like maybe the light's coming from this way, and then so you see mostly shadow, and then you move around and then you're seeing like the light side, or you can like tilt his head in a specific way that like changes the way that the light looks on his face. And a lot of that is going to be like blocking and camera moves in the moment that we try to figure out and that are, like sort of I hate to say improv but that that's a thing that we can think about
but that also kind
when
of
we're
gets
shooting it.
into what we're talking about with the whole Dogma 95 thing is like the real Dogma 95 is all everyone on set is just doing a big improv scene essentially. And so
Yeah.
I think there should be a little like I don't want our shot list to be like pan down to feet, pan back up to face, pan over to hands. You know what I mean? On each one of them, I do want there to be at least you know, two or three takes of each scene that are full freedom of, let the camera move where you want it to move type of thing.
I would agree,
But again, we'll get
but
more into that as we go.
right, right. I would agree. And there is like an amount of like we do it and then like maybe this isn't working, so we like sit back and then like think about it and like what if we did pan like this other way? But we should absolutely try and think about the way like the camera is going to pan and is going to move and how like the like relationship, especially in like the talking scenes of like on the phone of like where Rand is facing and like where the camera is and what we're looking at because that dictates lighting and that also like
Yeah,
those
I
are the
agree a
moments I think
thousand
in which we like
percent.
emphasize and we should have ideas that we want to of we should have ideas and concepts that we want to like play with and work with. And I agree that like maybe not it's not going to be like a prescribed thing of like we move here, then here, then here, then here, but we should absolutely have like ideas and like things that we're playing with, and everything should have like something behind it, and it's not just like moving around with the camera as
Yeah, I'm not
much.
the
But
guy who's like,
yeah.
fuck the shot list, let's go willy-nilly. But I do probably lean more towards that side. Not, again, still probably somewhere very close to the middle. Not, yeah. Don't get worried.
Okay.
Don't be scared.
I mean, you're saying like, oh, it's improv. I'm like,
Yeah, no, 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 no. But no, 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 no. Quinn, you had something to
yeah.
say
I did.
and you didn't get to say
This
it.
was
Yeah.
this was back to our dimming. And I agree. I think that kind of where we put the characters and how they're facing, like so much of the light can be talked about, like whether we're full broadside in the light or we got like just a
Hmm.
tiny edge on them, like that
Hmm.
changes so much. Another option we have, another one of the homework assignments, the drive sequence. I think they were playing it for cars and people going by the outside window. I think it was just grips with some flags and some reflectors walking around. Um, but when we've got our close up on him, his face is constantly getting darker and brighter because there are things moving by outside the window. Obviously, I don't think we want to do it as aggressively as they did it in Drive. Like he's in a city in a street. Um, but just having like a little bit of shape move out that window will, I feel like, could make a kind of a darkening effect that doesn't quite look like a dimming, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that light's gone.
What if
Yeah.
someone
I'm
put
glad.
a flag in front of the light back and forth?
Hmm.
Yeah, and if we got it from
Waste some
further
dues.
away, so it didn't like cut out all the light, it was kind of, a like a partial eclipse, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Still some light
Yeah.
coming through.
I mean, that was my idea with like the tree branches or blinds is that you could like do something like that. But I'm glad you brought this up because when I watched that, the thing that I noticed was when the dude comes over to him and was like, "Hey, I got this thing." Uh, he sits right in front of him, and that blocks the light behind him, and it brings him into shadow. And then when he like says his like crazy shit, like "I'm gonna fuck you up if you don't leave me alone," and then he's like says that when it's dark, and then the dude's like, "Okay, fine," and then he moves away, and then he's in the light again. For the times in which I've had some other ideas with like, also this thing is gonna close in like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at
But I
one
had,
minute we'll just cut her off.
yeah, the idea that I had here is that when Gil is sort of like confronting Rand about like either the potato chips or the paper towels, like Gil is like the aggressor in that moment. And so if he can like come in and like create that shadow and like be that, and then you can like I had some other ideas as well as that
Also,
like
framing wise, he can cut off Rand as much as
mhm.
possible in that frame so that
Yeah, yeah,
Rand's
yeah.
fighting for like the screen as well.
Yeah, and I was thinking that like in that moment Rand can be like shot with like the edge of light, and then like all you like the rest of his face is sort of like shadow, like he's being like quite literally like covered uh by Gil. And then you can also, if you want difference, you can shoot Gil in like a flat and like not flat, but like it can be like more lit like a separate way, different from that. So he's like, it just creates a difference there. And then you can like shoot Rand of where Rand is sort of like, if you're like looking like, if he's like looking like sort of like down and away and then like hit by the edge light, and then like Rand is more, or and then Gale is more like sort of like either like looking up or like straight on from like uh Rand's perspective. I don't know. We can play with like the angles, and like that can change like how you see these characters and how they interact, and sort of like emphasize the way that like Gil is treating Rand in that moment, I think.
All right, it's 1 minute. Let's swap over to the next link.
All right.
All right, peace.